In 2009, over Alabama, air traffic control received a report from Marcus Schrenker that his plane was malfunctioning. Later, the plane crashed in a fiery explosion on the Florida Panhandle, and Schrenker was presumed to have perished in the tragic incident. Except, he didn't. You see, it was all a hoax. At the time, Schrenker was going through a deeply challenging phase in his life. He faced multiple lawsuits, and after being caught in an affair, his wife filed for divorce. So, in an attempt to escape his troubles, he tried to fake his own death. Before this seemingly tragic incident, Schrenker brought saddlebags full of cash to a storage facility in Alabama. Then, he went back to Indiana, took his single-prop plane out for a long solo flight, and falsely reported a malfunction to air traffic control. He parachuted out while the plane traveled more than 300 kilometers before crashing, making it look like he had perished in the tragedy. Still, just like his bad decisions that led to the audacious attempt, this plan didn't last long. An email to his neighbor about the stunt led to his ultimate apprehension just a few days after the antic. Schrenker wasn't the only one who tried to fake his own death. In fact, people have been doing it since the 1st century for various reasons. Take Yohanan bin Zakkai, for example. He faked his death to escape the Roman army. This act is called a fake death, where an individual pretends to be dead while actually remaining alive. Usually, they leave behind evidence and clues pointing to their supposed demise. Sometimes, third parties are even involved to make it more convincing. Partners or children who are asked to commit crimes like filing false police reports or making fraudulent insurance claims may face criminal charges. People fake their deaths for various reasons. Some do it to get away from their problems, wanting to restart their lives. Some do it to get away from danger, like women who run away from abusive relationships or escape religious oppression. Some do it to arouse false sympathy, pulling it off as a practical joke to see how people react, whether they are loved or hated, whether they're truly missed or not. Some just have a weird curiosity to taste what death would feel like. Robert Lankiewicz faked his death in 1981 just to know what it was like to be dead. He claimed that the stunt was the closest thing he could get to knowing it. Nonetheless, as life insurance and insurance fraud became more common, so did the motive for fake deaths. The increasingly similar motive that we see today: money, money, and money. Greed is the main driver for pseudocide. So, it's good that many fraudsters who attempted their deaths end up getting caught, like Marcus Schrenker. Faking one's death isn't exactly illegal, but those who attempt it are usually trying to escape something. I mean, no one in their right mind would choose death over small matters. So, if their problems are too big to ignore, maybe death feels like the only way out. One of the most common methods is by pretending to drown, as it provides an excuse for the absence of a body. However, bodies usually surface within a few days, and when one doesn't, suspicion arises. This triggers an investigation, especially if the person was in serious financial trouble and had a hefty life insurance policy. Investigators would start by checking social media like Facebook and Instagram, then move on to more advanced techniques, such as searching databases. Most of the time, people who fake their deaths get caught because they can't cut ties completely. They stay in touch with their parents or spouse, or they just can't bear to leave their pets behind. Fake death cases are essentially missing person cases, but on steroids. The best ones who fake their deaths are those who plan it from the start. Many come to the US from countries like Nigeria or the Philippines, fake their deaths for insurance money, then fly back home and live normally. They may be free, but they would never be able to return to the US again. This act is not victimless, as it significantly affects the people around them. Those who grieved and thought it was real would be angry and might deem it unforgivable. people will feel emotionally abused or manipulated. So, rather than being happy that the faker is alive, they may be angry and refuse to have further contact. People who fake their deaths may underestimate how hard it is to pull off. Death is not temporary, it's permanent. The performance is a full-time job, and it takes a lot of money. Because of that, many who attempt it tend to be affluent, and the wealthier they are, the more suspicious investigators become. When investigating death fraud, the first question is always about the body. Does it actually exist or not? Fraudsters know how to get around this problem. In some countries, securing a dead body is surprisingly easy due to corrupt bureaucracies. In places like the Philippines, funeral parlors are responsible for collecting unclaimed bodies, usually those found on the streets. These are often the bodies of the poor, homeless, or unidentified individuals. With no grieving family and no one to cover the cost, funeral homes are left with the burden. So, when a fraudster shows up to claim a body, the funeral home is more than happy to hand it over. From there, all the fraudster has to do is hold a quick funeral and cremate the body. Creating a death certificate is just as easy, since fraudulent documents are widely available. But that doesn't mean fraudsters are off the hook. Faking one's death has become increasingly difficult over time, especially in the digital age. With more data, facial recognition, and other tracking technologies, it's getting easier and easier to find someone. Beyond the technological challenges, pseudocide also forces fraudsters to sever ties with their own lives completely. They can't afford to make a single mistake. No visiting their mom, no attending their daughter's graduation, no meeting their soulmate or best friend. Once they fake their death, they're cut off from the world forever. All the things we hear about faking one's death are mostly unpleasant and may make you never want to attempt it, as it would radically change your life and make you more miserable. But how does one fake one's death? Well, the first step is to plan the accident, and you can choose whether it looks like you kicked your own bucket or if it was purely accidental. Then you have to have a place to go, a place to hide, with enough cash on hand without needing to rely on credit cards or other methods that can reveal where you are. The third thing, which is nearly impossible, is to cut all ties and communication with friends and never look back. Leave all the good and bad parts of who you are, your whole life history, your identity, everything that made you who you used to be. Initially, you have to deal with the people who might come looking for you. Depending on the motive behind your deception, you might have the Securities and Exchange Commission or insurance investigators on your trail. If you get past them and want to keep living your new life, you'll need fraudulent identification papers to get a job, rent or buy a home, or open a bank account under a new name. From here on, it all depends on how good you are at being invisible. Your only objective now is to never get caught, because if you do, they'll pull the rug out from under you just like that, and everything you've built will be gone in an instant. Then you'll have to brace yourself for a new life in prison, facing charges of fraud, identity theft, and whatever else you did to keep the lie alive. Would you really want to build a new life on something as fragile as a house of cards in a storm, knowing it could all come crashing down at any moment? In the case of fraud, faking one's death is almost always bad. But in other contexts, it might give you a new chance at life. If you were the target of a criminal who wanted to kill you or caught in a mass shooting, playing dead could literally mean the difference between life and death. In 2022, 11-year-old Maya Saralo smeared her friend's blood all over herself and pretended to be dead during the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Texas, and it saved her life. Playing dead might also help you if you run into a brown bear, as it would stop seeing you as a threat. This, however, may only work for brown bears, and if they see you as food, they'll eat you no matter how good your acting skills are. So your best chance at surviving is to fight back. People who fake their deaths are alive, yet they want to be seen as dead. But then, there are people who actually died but were denied their deaths, with others insisting they faked it. When Adolf Hitler died, many speculated that he faked his death and escaped Berlin in 1945, using misleading evidence like his dental remains and a body double. In August 1977, after Elvis Presley died, rumors started swirling that he faked his own death and went into hiding. Some fans even claimed to have seen him in different places around the world. Then, in 1978, a book called Orion was published by Gail Brewer Giorgio. It told the story of a Presley-like singer who faked his own death to escape the pressure of fame. According to her publisher mysteriously pulled the book from stores, which made her wonder if the real Elvis Presley had faked his own death. In contrast to the denial of death, there are times when people are declared dead even though they're still alive, usually celebrities or public figures. Death hoaxes have been around long before the internet, with false reports about Charlie Chaplin, Frank Sinatra, and other stars making the rounds. Some hoaxes go even further, claiming that a celebrity actually died and was secretly replaced by a look-alike, like the conspiracy theories about Paul McCartney and Avril Lavigne. Even headline news almost fell for a death hoax. In 1992, a man claiming to be George H.W. Bush's physician falsely reported that Bush had died in Tokyo after vomiting and losing consciousness. Just as anchor Don Harrison was about to read the news, the executive producer yelled for him to stop.
Stop. We are now getting a correction. We will not give you that.
Turns out, a CNN employee entered the false information into a centralized computer system used by both CNN and headline news teleprompters before it was verified. The culprit behind the hoax was James Smith, who was questioned by the Secret Service and later sent to a medical facility for psychiatric evaluation. A person who was thought to be dead suddenly appearing back to life might seem like a resurrection. And Jesus is probably the most famous example, as if he had faked his own death. But there have been real cases of people declared dead who later turned out to be very much alive. In Poland, 91-year-old Janina Kolkiewicz woke up in a morgue after being declared dead and refrigerated for 11 hours. She was discovered to be alive when the mortuary staff noticed movement in her body bag. In 2014, 78-year-old Walter Williams was found alive and kicking in a body bag at a funeral home in Mississippi, just as staff were preparing to embalm him. He barely escaped the gruesome fate of being embalmed alive, while his blood was drained and replaced with formaldehyde. These cases of people coming back to life were quite common in the past, largely due to a limited understanding of human biology. But even today, the problem persists. For instance, Walter Williams was mistakenly declared dead because the coroner who pronounced him dead didn't even have a medical degree. This is exactly why death should be determined by medically trained professionals, especially since, even within the medical community, the very definition of death is still debated. Then there's Lazarus syndrome, a phenomenon where the heart spontaneously resuscitates after failed attempts at revival. It refers to the unexpected return of cardiac activity after a person has been pronounced dead. In May 2008, Velma Thomas set the record for the longest recovery from clinical death. She went into cardiac arrest and was declared clinically dead for 17 hours after doctors failed to detect brain activity. Her son even stated that her skin had begun to harden and her hands and toes were curling up. Given her condition, she was taken off life support and funeral arrangements were underway. But just 10 minutes after life support was removed, she revived and fully recovered, seemingly resurrected from death and defying it altogether. The problem with mistakenly being pronounced dead is that you can be buried prematurely. To avoid this, some people developed a gruesome and archaic method to test if someone was still alive, usually by targeting pain receptors. They would shove needles beneath fingernails or slice nostrils. But some people with catalepsy, a condition that mimics the stiff muscles of rigor mortis and slows breathing, are not sensitive to pain. So, the gruesome archaic test for death might not have worked on them. Fortunately, modern medical tests and equipment make sure that doesn't happen. But if people were buried alive, we wouldn't know about them anyway, would we? There are many ways to escape life's burdens and obstacles, but death is often not one of them. Unless you're fleeing an abusive relationship or actual harm, it's not worth it. If you've made a lot of bad decisions, faking your death will only add more to an endless list of bad decisions. Once you die, real or not, you lose the life you once had forever. And if you get caught, you'll spend years in prison. A better way to move forward is to live your life and try to undo your mistakes little by little. It may take time, but it's definitely better than living in paranoia, trapped in a fake life that could collapse at any moment. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons for supporting me financially. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to support me further, you can check out my Patreon, where I post some bonus content. A companion video for this one will be out in the next few days. Anyway, I'm feeling more mentally stable than I have in the past few weeks, and I'm actually applying for some jobs right now. Hopefully, that will help me feel more at ease without relying too much on YouTube, since I make very little from it anyway. I'd love to reach a point where I can do this purely for fun and self-expression. So yeah, thanks for supporting me.